So today I wanted to talk a little bit about perfect posture. So now everything that everybody does, there's this common word called find your perfect posture. A lot of my clients that come in, I ask them what that means and they don't have a hot clue. So usually when you're training something, you want to know what it is. So when I ask someone to define it, they don't know what perfect posture is. What common answers are, it's where you should be. Well, when you're training something and you're just pulling something, you hear perfect posture, or you're sit upright, or all these other words that are used to describe your ideal working position, but nobody knows what that is when I ask to define it. So what I'm going to tell you is what it is. So if you take all the bones of your spine and you stack one bone on top of the other and they all sit exactly where they should sit, that's your perfect posture. Everybody has a different curve. Everybody, like, we're not carbon copies of one another, but the reason behind that position is because there's no tug of war on the muscles, there's no stress on the ligaments. It takes the least amount of energy for your body to hold itself there. The problem with that is because of our repetitive motions that we do throughout our life, so whether that's sitting, right, walking, running, those are all repetitive motions, and what happens, we tend to lose balance. So like you'll get the forward head, well that's not your perfect posture. So then what we're ideally what we want to try to do is get ourselves into that perfect posture to learn what that is, and everybody commonly struggles with that. It's really we're all, the stress of gravity gets to us, it slowly shrinks us. So if you think in terms of your spine and your pelvis, your perfect posture through your hips is if you take your pubic bone and your two hip bones, and if I push them against a plane of glass, all 3 points would touch. That's your ideal pelvis position. So if I let my pubic bone come ahead of these hip bones, that's me in a tuck, right? And obviously you can tell this is not an ideal situation. And then if it's the opposite, if you take your pubic bone and you move it behind the front of your hips, you can see that I'm in a butt back arched, strained position. So ideally what your perfect posture is in relation to your pelvis, and I always start at your pelvis because this is your hub. If you're not functioning here, then nothing above or below will function. So as a quick trick, what you want to do is try to get your pubic bone and your two hip bones in alignment. Now, that doesn't mean when I'm bent forward that I want to line up my pubic bones. It's always in relation to where your spine is sitting. So that should mean, or that focus is when we're bending over, when we're sitting. So if we're sitting, you want to try to get those hip bones and pubic bone in the same position. When you're standing, which is, it's harder when you're standing for most of us because we're tight in our hips. So if you give your knees a little bit of a bend, it's easier to find that position. The best way to wake up the stability to find that position is through pelvic tilting. So if this is something that you need a little help with, and I say 99% of us do, because we are out there pelvic tilting, but not from the right stabilizing muscles. So I would watch the video on pelvic tilting.